So really what intrigued you the most initially was the small group aspect, which is
Yes.
interesting because some of the other people who have done interviews with me, it was they kind of didn't love that, and that was not their
Oh,
initial. They felt very apprehensive, like, "I'm not gonna share, I'm just gonna listen," kinda thing.
mm,
So it's really intriguing that that was something that drew you in, and
yes.
then it sounds like you were like, "Wow, this is really, really lower brain driven," and so through the course of that 6 weeks, what do you feel by maybe listening to the other group members, like, did you from their experience and what they were sharing and what we were learning, did you maybe see your mind in a different way than you had prior?
Yes, it reinforces the idea that this is common experiences for all of us. That we all hear the same or very similar lower brain chatter. It really drove that home for me. Things that weren't necessarily weight loss related. I remember one of the members sharing about an incident with her child and or her grown child and just the thought she was having, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I've had very similar thoughts, and my child's not grown." Just the commonality between it all, which helps reinforce the idea that this is not us speaking to us. This is
Mm.
the lower brain is a completely its own little gremlin entity that
Mhm.
that that talks to all of us the same. I actually early on in the course I had this visual in my mind when you were discussing something during one of our coaching calls of an old school phone operator, with
Mhm.
all the wires and plugging into all the different holes connecting the lines, if you can imagine
Mhm.
that in your head. But I
Mhm.
imagine the phone operator as the lower brain saying the same thing over and over, and let me plug into this person, let me plug into this person. But I'm just the same thing saying, over and over to just all these random people.
And what I always appreciate about you sharing in the intensive was you would bring real world examples like, "Okay, I see I do this thing repetitively. How can I start to think about this, see this differently?" And one of them, if I'm not mistaken, was like, I think it had something to do with you traveling and planning
Yes.
your food, correct? Would you
Yes.
mind sharing that here? Kind of like
Yeah.
maybe how that had been a repetitive pattern for you. And then as we discussed it and looked at some alternate ways of dealing with it, which probably made you very uncomfortable. And when I
Mm.
say you, I don't mean you, I mean, of course, the repetitive lower brain chatter. But like, how did that show up for you?
Yeah, so I had a habit of going on vacation and at least having the mindset of I'm not going to lose during vacation. I knew I'd try and maintain, but not being realistic with the amount of calories I'm actually going to consume while on vacation, while out of
Mhm.
town. And just trying to keep myself at maintenance. And yet, every single time I would go over maintenance.
Mhm.
My maintenance calories at least multiple days, if not the entire time. I'd be so good and then, quote unquote, so good. And then uh, I'd let it all go at some point. So, being much more realistic, you help me see just do something different and plan that 4,500 calorie day, as
Mhm.
you've referenced in many YouTube videos and podcasts, and
Mhm.
you've referenced it many times. And so I went out of town. I was gone for 5 days and I planned 4,500 calories for each day. And oh my gosh, when I
Mhm.
wrote that down in my spreadsheet of pre planning 4,500 calories for each day, super uncomfortable. I'm like,
Mhm.
that's ridiculous. I'm not
Mhm.
going to do that. Um,
Yeah.
super uncomfortable. Also, what was also uncomfortable was well, so I planned that. I went out of town and the first day went a little hog wild because I'm like, I've got 4,500 calories.
Mhm.
I can do whatever I want. So it went a little hog wild, but still didn't end up at 4,500. It
Mm.
still was less than that. And then after that first day, it was like I kept my habits of I wanted a solid breakfast, protein forward, fruits and or vegetables at every meal, drinking lots of water, kept those core habits, but then just kind of paid attention to, am I really hungry? Do I really want this? And,
Mhm.
um, went over maintenance every day, but
Right.
not 4,500.